Welcome to the first episode of Teach Me a Lesson. I am Elliott G-B. I'm a comedian, writer, podcaster, streamer, all the above. And this is my new podcast. As the title suggests, I will be bringing on guests every episode, not every week, every episode, to have them teach me a lesson that they've learned through life. I have myself within the last couple of years gotten a little into self-helpy stuff, but not so much the pushy aspect of it or all of that, but I'm just very curious about what has helped other people, what has worked for other people, and sort of if I can apply that to my own life. So I found that I've had a lot of conversations with friends. I have a lot of talented, creative, very cool friends, and I've had a lot of conversations like that with them that kind of I've taken stuff away from and then retold to other people, pass it along, and it's kind of helped them. So I said, you know what? Why don't we just start our own podcast, baby? Why don't we do this ourselves? Because that's kind of what I would listen to for podcasts, or listen for in podcasts. But I find nothing really hit the way I wanted it to. Nothing was really scratching that itch. So I'm starting my own. Here we go. And this is the first episode. This is the first intro. It feels like the first intro, I can tell you that much. We'll nail this down a little bit in the future. But yeah, I'm just hoping that this brings some sort of insight to other people. Maybe some people you wouldn't necessarily seek out on your own to talk to, or possibly would just never have the opportunity to. And then we can sit down, just talk about some cool stuff, and inspire the world. But yeah, so first off, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the plunge. It's great. This is a good episode. It was recorded 2 months ago. Planned on putting it out earlier, but you know, life finds a way, especially in 2021, baby. Don't we know it? But yeah, it's with my good friend Taylor Clark. Very funny comedian, podcaster, musician. He tickles them keys. Since this episode has come out, Taylor's web series that he references a couple times, Comedians at Skate Parks, has dropped. It has come out. It is very good. Check it out. There will be links below. If you are watching on YouTube, if you are listening, check us out on all of our socials. It'll all be there. And Taylor has also broken his ankle at skateboarding. He's an adult skateboarder. This conversation picks up where we're both kind of talking about that because I grew up rollerblading. Which, you know, Taylor doesn't like to admit it, but very similar things that we do. And, you know, just don't worry about what he thinks about it, what other skateboarders think about it. It's very similar. But so this episode kind of starts in the middle of that conversation because I realize it's kind of similar to what he talks about on his web series. So I kind of cut it out a little bit. But it will be available on the Patreon. We will be putting out Patreon bonus episodes along with every regular episode that is dropped. Regular episodes will come out every other Monday. Patreon episodes will be kind of offsetting that. So it'll be, if you're a patron, if you're a Patreoner, then you could be getting new episodes every week. Sounds great. Where do I sign? On Patreon. You sign up on there. Also make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at TMAL Teach Me a Lesson Pod, and on TikTok at Teach Me a Lesson Pod. It'll all be in the descriptions, all of that. Check us out. Again, that's TMAL Pod on Twitter and Instagram, Teach Me a Lesson Pod on TikTok. Check me out. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Grentraddis, GRENTRADDISH. Yeah, I have a link tree in there that has links to all my stuff. Follow me on YouTube as well. And yeah, let's get to this conversation. It's a good one. I've been thinking about it a lot. We talk about and actually I don't know if I want to spoil what it is. I don't know if I want to spoil the lesson. Maybe I'll beep that out. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, let's get to it. That dog in the background is barking. It's rearing to go. So yeah, again, I appreciate you taking the plunge. Make sure to follow, subscribe, whatever it is you're listening on. Do whatever their form of that is. Also follow on the socials. And yeah, if you're enjoying it, join the Patreon. It would really help offset some of these costs of hosting and recording and all of that. But also, if you don't have money, which, hey, I feel you, just spread the word. just tell some friends, tell some people, hey, this podcast is pretty cool. Check it out. And make sure to come back next episode. I'm excited. It's a very great conversation we had. You're going to enjoy it. Thanks again for tuning in, and I appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Enjoy.
I related to skateboarding all the time because like when you're trying to like learn a trick, you have to like put your foot in exactly the right place and then pop at the exactly the right time. And don't forget that lady is walking by over here, and then there's a crack that is gonna fuck up your wheels right when you get there, and then all of this kind of stuff. And then you right before you do it, the real trick is to forget about all of that and just be like completely present and in the moment. And that's how stand up is when you're like, I've got like 9,000 words memorized and I'm trying to put them all in the right order in the exact right time. But then really when I get up there, I have to like black out and just be like completely zoned in on the moment. And it's almost impossible sounding until you do it.
I don't know. So I've just like thought about that a lot, the parallels between that and comedy, because it's, when people kind of come into comedy, I feel like, I guess I should say, I feel like people who come from that kind of have a leg up because we're already in that mindset of just like, all right, yeah, if I want to do something like, get pictures or, tape. In comedy, you got to get tape.
Right. It's not like I go to the skateboard photography, for hire store and pick out a photographer and and go get it done. No, it doesn't. There's no template, and it's constantly changing and evolving, and so you have to be in tune with what's going on within the culture and the industry to have any kind of idea of how to pursue it for yourself.
Yeah.
Comedy is almost exactly like that. Like you'd never know what's going on. And I remember the first open mic I went to, you go to it and you're like, oh my God, so this is show business. Like, all right.
Yeah.
I get it. And then you come back like the next couple of nights and you're like, what the fuck? These people are doing the same jokes, and your head explodes, you know? And so the more you get into it, the more that keeps happening, where you're like, oh, I thought it worked like this, turns out it works like that. I thought it was like this, turns out it's like that. And then because it's changing all the time, if you stop paying attention to it for any 1 minute, you come back and then whatever, there's new bookers, there's new clubs, like this is what the people want now. You gotta stay relevant. You gotta jump on social media. It used to be about crafting a bit for 10 years before you put it out. Now you put out every joke as soon as you do it, right on Instagram right away. That's what the people want. And and comedy and skateboarding have all done that with like how people just put their stuff out there completely unpolished and undone.
Yeah.
It's funny. My whole show, the web series I'm starting, Comedians at Skate Parks, is almost like completely around my love of talking about how much skateboarding and I guess like to some degree rollerblading are like comedy, and like comedy specifically being so unique, and that it's so hard to find other things that are like that, in the way that you pursue it and the way you craft it and the lifestyle of it, the subculture, all of those kinds of things. And I've talked to musicians, I've talked to painters, like other, careerists, and none of them really are that much like comedy. But for whatever reason, I think like skateboarding is the most like it, and the way it, like you were talking about, changes your perspective of the world around you. It does that with when you skate, or or bike, even to a degree, but especially like street skateboarding, where you look at everything that you drive by in a car differently. Like all of your surroundings now, that landscape is forever changed, because now you see opportunity instead of just what it was there for in the first place, what it was its original purpose, or whatever. It's a building, it's a ledge, it's a staircase. You now see opportunity. And with comedy, it's the same thing, but like in social settings and on TV, and like everything you see is now like, oh, that's not what it was supposed to be. Maybe I can use it as an opportunity for a joke. Maybe I'm going to see this, whatever that happened, differently, and then use that as an opportunity for creativity, and then take it on stage. And if it works and I'm right, I get immediate gratification. And skateboarding is like that exactly, because you're like, fuck, if I land it, I know immediately if it's good. If I landed that shit, I'm rolling away and it's immediate gratification. In comedy, if the joke works, you know right then.
Yeah.
And there's very few things that can like equate to that level of like ecstasy when it works, when everything works right.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think of I mean the angles for sure, because yeah, in comedy you're like, okay, what's kind of my angle for coming at this topic or this premise or whatever. And then same with skating is you see something and you're like, okay, I like that rail, but like what's the run up to it? Maybe it's super short, maybe we got to get plywood, or like we
There's
got
all
it.
these circumstances.
Like what's the
exactly.
but then also the landing shit is when a joke fucking works, you feel it. It's the same as just like stomping a landing, and just like you landed clean and you're like, all right, boom, that was it. But then if a joke is like kind of tepid, you can tell there's something there, but it's like, it's just you got to reword it or you got to rework it. It's the same as like getting a landing and people are like, ah, that was good, and you're like, nah, it was a little sloppy, like it could be cleaner. It could be cleaner. So then you want to go back. And for me, at least, it is kind of that, like, how can I get it perfect? Like, how do I like that? That's what I like fell in love with about comedy, is like the writing. Like, okay, how do I get the like tinkering with an idea? Like, okay, I got this idea. Let me go try it. It works, but this could be a little smoother. All right, let me go back, fuck with it a little bit, try it again. Like kind of that.
Yep.
And that's the same with skating, although skating is a little more physically tiring, and so that can kind of be, I forget that frustration though.
I mean, maybe it is physically, but comedy is emotionally and mentally and financially a lot more stressing.
Yeah, very much. Well, all right, I didn't mean to fully go off on that whole tangent, but so what's your lesson, man? What do you want to talk about?
I mean, to bring it full circle, right? Like the patience and failure and resilience, I've all been kind of very key in everything and everything that I've done, from like when I used to, my first job of like working with kids with coaching gymnastics and shit, I had to have, practice and execute immense patience all the time. Working with children is just obviously, you got to be, you know, uh, you got to be patient with kids. Otherwise, you'll end up throwing them against the walls. Which, luckily as a gymnastics coach, I got to do as part of the gig.
Yeah. And that's kind of
flipping these kids.
It's a big upside. That's what you asked about in the interview.
It is a big upside.
They're like, here's the pay, here's the benefits. You're like, yeah. What about the wall? What's the wall situation like at the gym?
But I will get to clothesline a couple of toddlers. It still comes into play. So that with skating, obviously too, you just have to have a ton of patience, and with comedy, having a ton of patience. With comedy, I think I should deserve whatever kind of award they give for people who who wait for things to happen, because I was in this for, I don't know, I think it was like 12, 13 years before I ever submitted to a festival or tried to like, get it, any kind of career cooking for myself. And I think it was worth the wait, because by the time I did, things actually started happening pretty quickly.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of feel the same way. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, of I can sort of ask for more, and kind of put myself out there a little bit more. And I will catch myself kind of beating myself up about it. But to that point, I do think the waiting isn't necessarily bad, because now it's like, oh, okay, because you look back, especially, I know my first tape that I submitted to a festival, I don't even watch it. It's on my YouTube. It's fucking unlisted, so only I can see it. And I watched 2 minutes of it the other day, and I was like, dear God, throw me in a fucking lake. Like, this is bad shit. So that patience, even though it is kind of, especially with social media and shit, you see everything everyone's doing, and everyone likes to post their wins. And so you see all of that, and I'm kind of like, fuck, man, I should be asking for more. But then looking back now, I'm like, okay, when I was thinking that, or thinking, oh, I should have applied to this or that, I've gotten so much better in X amount of time that now when I do, I'm putting a better foot forward, because that is a huge thing, is you don't want to be you know, in
And now,
this business, baby. If they see you and you're bad, they're gonna write you off forever. So you want to be good.
and no, they don't. They just forget you
Yeah,
until
exactly.
like an hour later. Like you really do realize that you're like, oh, nobody remembers you, even if you're great. Like time flies so quickly in the minds of everyone. No matter how important you think you are, nobody remembers you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people forget to call Tom Cruise back. You know, like it just like everybody is just some shithead to somebody. And so like it just happens. And when what I was going to say is that you, since you have been submitting to festivals and you started doing that kind of stuff early, I think what's awesome is that like now that you're a lot better now, you're more polished, you're submitting more professionally, and you're also kind of in the routine and the habit of asking for stuff and of submitting for stuff, which I don't know. For a long time, I used to kind of dog on people who were like 2 or 3 years into comedy and had merch and a website and like were fucking sending packets to managers and shit. And I was like, you bomb, but you're bombing. Like why do you have merch? Who makes merch after they've never done well? Like that's crazy. But now I honestly look back on a lot of those people, if they stay in it, as having like such a leg up because they're already in practice of doing all that stuff. So by the time they do break or something happens, they already have like an incredible foundation of branding and merchandising and marketing themselves and putting themselves out there. And they have all of those habits built of submitting to, representation and festivals and trying to chase opportunities down every single path.
Yeah.
Because I never did any of that. For 10 or 12 years, I was just like, yeah, but I think I need to cut the fat on this dick joke, Ooh, that's good. I'll put that in there,
Yeah.
And that's like what I spent, but I don't know. There's no right way to pursue it is a big, the big lesson really is it's like everyone's going to find their own way to do it. And it's not like right or wrong necessarily.
Yeah. We were kind of talking before about, how I am really interested in hearing other people's kind of like origin stories, especially like comics and just artists or musicians. And it's not so much in the fact, I know some people do it to kind of get like tips, which I kind of do too. I mean, there's some stuff that will like come up where people are like, oh, I kind of hit up this person and they said, oh, this isn't the way to do it. Go this way, or, kind of approach someone like this or situation like this, which I think, that's totally fair. But I'm just, I don't know why. I'm more interested to hear kind of what it was like, because then you do kind of find out, oh, there really, like you said, there really isn't a route or a way. And that's where I think some people watch it to be like, oh man, I want to do it just like, one of my favorites did it. So I'm going to kind of try to follow their path to a T. Like I know someone who was like, I want to move to New York. And I think I was like, why? And they were like, because all the greats lived in New York at some point. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but like that doesn't really mean any, like all the greats probably ate at Subway too. Does that mean you're gonna fucking eat at Subway? Like it's not necessarily gonna change anything.
Which Subway?
Well, it was in New York. It was one in New York, and all the big agents hang out there. So actually, I think they were onto something.
I totally agree. There's only one way to find out, is what I usually tell people like want to move to New York or LA, or I'm thinking about doing this. And like you even said like, oh, I really like Ron Funch's podcast and I'm modeling what I'm doing around kind of things that I really liked and inspired me, which is I think the right thing to do. You're like, there's a model that really worked, right? Like you can see a template that, is followable. So why not like follow it, but I'll adapt it to my own personality, my own interests. And it won't be Ron Funch's podcast because it's me doing it.
Yeah.
Which is like, like I liked Pete Holmes' podcast, said he essentially did that to Mark Maron's podcast. People are like, oh, people do have a bunch of comedy podcasts or whatever. And he was like, yeah, but this is me doing it. Like I'm not those, like it's different. And I think that's like completely healthy, is to like find a model that works and follow it. It's better than just like trying to reinvent the wheel and like do something you know, for the sake of being abstract, and then it fails because, you know, you're not following any kind of model of success.
Yeah, and I
Does that
think
make sense?
with that too, then you definitely learn patience. And I'm just thinking of like the people you said who start out and then right away get a website, get this, you know, I'm gonna start calling myself this or go by this, blah, blah, you know, like all that stuff. And you see it,
Right,
and you
right.
see when you're
You can really go about it the wrong way. See, that's the whole thing. Is it's like you're taking huge risks really early, putting yourself out there. Like, my stage name is Wacky Tacky, and then like I'm, you know, I drink Slurpees on stage, whatever, you know. And it's like, I guess, I mean, at least you're trying. But
yeah,
then in a couple of years, as long as you're not like a complete phony asshole, which I think is going to be bad for branding regardless. But if you're genuine and you're like, yeah, you know, I know I'm a 2-year comic, but you know, I got some, you know, I got some t-shirts, you know, why not?
yeah,
It's like, I can't really fault you for that, you know, even if you're not funny.
yeah,
If you're sincere and I like you and you're not being a total dickhead about it and like presenting as if you're hot shit, which I think at any point in your career is, you know, kind of unflattering.
yeah,
But there's obviously tact is a big part of it.
yeah. And just having, like you said, then you see them years down the line, and hopefully they've kind of learned from it, or you know, maybe it goes well, because there are some people, I think especially for me, I'll look at the people who are just better at putting themselves out there and selling themselves kind of, and even if they are a couple years in or not necessarily where I think they should be doing all of this yet, and it's going well, and I'm just like, well, you know, that's kind of just how they are as a person versus me.
But you want to like hack the system for your own self, right? For
Yeah.
your own personality. Be like, okay, but that's how they do it. So how do I kind of like follow in their footsteps, take inspiration, and
Yeah.
still not have to like sell my soul, or like what I used to do is be like, I'm trying to do some, you know, social media is a perfect example because I've never been able to really kind of put myself out there consistently on social media in any kind of way that I can stomach. And so like it's been a struggle to find kind of like carve out a way to do it where I don't, you know, where I feel like I can like maintain my own mental health and
Yeah.
still like garner whatever benefits there are for me to garner on social media. You know what I mean? And so it was like I would follow. I would, you know, keep myself up at night, fucking spend 17 hours trying to draft a Facebook post that nobody really even would see, you know?
Yeah.
And it'd
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
like, this is not an effective way to spend my time. Like, and so you have to like, you know, figure out a way that you're like, what works to my skill set that still uses social media to like get as much out of it as I can, you know? And it took me whatever, like 15 years to finally kind of get there. And if had I not taken me that long, what I did wouldn't have probably worked, you know, in the way that it did.
Yeah. I think that's like, you have to, going back to the patience thing, is you have to have just the natural patience within yourself to be like, okay, let me figure out through trial and error, like you said, figure out what's my route for doing this. Because I'm like pretty much the same with social media. I'm like, I like it, and through like podcasts and projects, I've like really researched how to work it, how to do it. Like I'll get into it for a week and be like, here's my schedule, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm just like, I don't like it, I don't like doing this. And then, you know, you just like, one of the big things with social media people say is just be consistent. You know, obviously don't be posting a million times a day, but have a schedule, kind of stick to it, and you don't have to be doing a lot. As long as people are just like, oh, okay, this is what I can sort of come to expect from this person, versus, you know, kind of bursts of, all right, it's going to be every other day for 2 weeks, and then a month goes by, and then this and that. As long as they're like, okay, yeah, once every 2 weeks there'll be a post, kind of that, you know, you're just kind of sticking in there. It's nothing too crazy or anything, but you kind of got to have the patience within yourself to figure that out, or to allow yourself to fail, to try something and be like, this works, but I kind of don't really like it. So what can I do? Let me take the time to figure out how I do it to my liking. and to where it doesn't drive me fucking insane.
100%. I mean, it comes down to like, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to put in? Knowing yourself well enough to recognize an appropriate way to engage in whatever your, challenge is, whether it's social media or, doing comedy and maintaining a healthy fucking relationship with somebody, which is its own can of worms that you have to have a lot of patience with. But when it comes down to habits, when it came to social media, for me, it was the same thing. It was like quitting smoking or something, where I was like, all right, it has to be like I have to know that this is going to be a permanent lifestyle change when I get into it. And it's because if I come into this with any other expectation, it's not going to work. Like if this is going to work, it's going to be like, this is like me now, like I'm a dude on social media. Like I'm a comedian. I have an album out, whatever. This is who I am. And this is my now every single day I engage with this. Whereas like before, I would not even log into my social media more than once a week sometimes, once a month sometimes. And this is even as a comedian who's pursuing it, just like uninterested. And now it's like, well, if I'm going to have a career, like, fuck, I have to do it. If I want to live, I have to quit smoking. If I want to fucking land this trick, like my ankle has to work, so I'm going to like heal it and take care of it and make sure I have all of the things necessary so that when I do put in, it's going to be fucking worth it. And I'm going to be able to put in with confidence that it's going to work, not immediately, but eventually, because again, like I'm coming in for the full run, like for the rest of my life. And having those habits and that expectation, I think, is key. Because I was like, just log in once a day was like the first habit I had to build. Like just set the bar there. Like just know that you're going to be on social media for the rest of your life. So don't be like, I have to post on every single fucking account every single fucking day. And it has to be good. And it has to be funny. And I'm going to be smart. And like, I'm going to know about all the fucking, international politics. And then you fucking don't, you blow it. You get insecure, get into a fight with someone in the comment section. And then you fucking throw your laptop against the wall. And you're like, fuck it, I'm going to farm. And then you're like, God damn it, I want to do stand-up still. You fucking bring it back around. And I did that for years. And then finally, I was like, just log in once a day. Slowly, the next challenge will be like post once a week and then post. And then pretty soon, you'll have the habit of like posting hopefully close to every day, which is still something I'm working on.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel so taxing anymore because I came in like nice and slow.
Yeah. Have you
instead of trying to overwhelm myself.
Have you ever read Atomic Habits?
Yes, I've got it on my bookshelf over here.
Yeah, say that's.
And I got 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I have like a million habit books. I like went down the rabbit hole. The number one book though on it was The One Thing. If you've ever read that book,
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, that was my favorite one. It kind of really knocks that message home, like hits that message home of start slow and pick one thing that you really, really want and make it really, really specific and really, really big, and then work your way backwards and start with like one small habit that like if you could knock over one small domino, it could knock over a bunch of like other big dominoes that are twice its size.
Yeah.
So start small and then just have a big vision of where you want to go and just keep knocking over dominoes.
Yeah,
habit-wise.
That is that's the thing in Atomic Habits that I necessarily didn't realize until reading it. But the reason a lot of people fail with trying to make a big change, like I think the example they use in the book is like, New Year's diets is, okay, I'm going to start this diet and I'm going to get healthier. I'm going to start working out. And you just try to go all in. You just try to go all in right at the beginning, and it's a shock to your system, not just like physically your system, but the way you live and your
up here in your head, just
and your
what
routines.
You think of
yeah. So it's like you have to fully kind of rebuild your life around whatever that goal is. And the best way to do that is to start small. So like you said, okay, I'm just going to log on. I'm just going to get on to fucking Instagram every day. And I don't have to post, but then eventually that gets worked into your system, so you're in the habit
Yep.
of, okay, I'm on here, and now you're like, all right, I'm gonna comment. It's like just little steps, so it's not just like, all right, I gotta fucking get on and I gotta post, it's gotta be good, and I gotta get this many likes, it's gotta be viral. It's the same with just every little thing in your life.
That's a big part of it, is like starting small and knowing what is your big why of why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because if you comes down with social media is like a great example, like when you're like, oh, but if it doesn't work, what now?
Yeah.
And it's like, was that the point for it to like get this many likes? Because really the point was for you to start the habit of doing it, right? And so it's like, if you start eating really healthy and you don't lose weight right away, and you're like, fuck this, back to Burger King, it's like it doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to be great at it right away, but like you stay on it, you start slowly, like instead of changing your whole diet, you just eat celery sticks instead of fucking French fries, and you start there. But you know that your big goal is to be like a health nut, or like to eat really, really healthy all the time, or to be on social media really, really consistently and well, right? Whatever the big goal is, it's important to know where you're going and why, but to know that you're not doing it for immediate results.
Would you say
Anyway, I'm doing a library circuit tour where I talk about all of this stuff, and you guys can buy my book, Skater Habits for Hella Funky Dope People. By Taylor Clark.
Skater Habits would be a terrible book, because it'd be like, all right, wake up around noon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kick the other dude off the couch.
Yell at your sister, and then go down to the old schoolyard. School's in session, so you have to hide.
Yeah. Go to the skate park.
Get your tricks.
Hang out. Do one trick every 30 minutes, and then just sit and drink warm beer and smoke cigarettes, talk shit on the kids that are there.
People think skaters. What do you guys think? We're in the Olympics now. You got to take us fucking serious.
That is true. That's so funny.
I'm going to yell that at security guards now. We're in the Olympics.
I'm training. This is my training ground
for the Olympics.
I hate to ask such a broad question, but I was wondering, is that like reading those books, is that when you learned patience, or like, but I mean more of that mindset of, oh, okay, I have to go slow for it to kind of get there?
I've always been, what I learned in these books was called like very entrepreneurial, about how I pursue things, where I would like get a really good idea and get really, really excited about it, and then do it really, really hard for like a couple of fucking, who knows, anything from a couple of minutes to a couple of weeks to like
the same way.
Maybe a month or something, and then I'd be like, man, this is hard, and like I'd be like, oh, just all the follow through, it would be. And then I'd be like, oh, it's not really what I thought it was when I jumped into this idea. And so like I would lose interest. And so knowing that it was just going to take time and it had to be permanent were like things that I learned in these books. Actually, the easy way to stop smoking was the first like self-help book I ever read that was like worked. Like, oh, like noticeable change. Like I quit smoking. Like, like, wow, like a book actually did like change my life for the better, and like one of the most immediate ways I've ever seen. Like I didn't even know that kind of change was possible just from like a book. It was crazy. So when I engaged in all my other like habit training or whatever, it was like so much of it was using that mentality of like, okay, so it's got to be permanent. Like I'm entering into this, and it's not like, oh, I'll do this for a little while. One day I won't have to exercise all the time, or like one day I'll be able to, like eat like absolute garbage or again, or and I fucking quit smoking and quit drinking and started exercising and started eating really healthy, and then like started adapting. It all was my big want was a career, and a stand-up comedy career, like a touring headliner, like that was my carrot. So I was like, if I'm gonna get that, like I have to like probably like quit smoking. Like that's where it all started, was like, don't be like a drunk, smoky pile of shit, maybe, and then like you'll be more likely to. And so I started with like the first habit, knowing it was going to be smoking, but then like through all of my like habit challenges, it was like all leading towards the bigger habit of like being able to essentially like manage my own career with all of the things, all of like the healthy habits necessary to do it.
Yeah.
You know, like write every day, send booking emails, manage social media, like have a good representation, like be working on a book, be working on a screenplay, like, and like manage, like have a wife and a kid that don't hate you and are still around, and those relationships are healthy. And it's like, how do I get there? Like how do I build that archetype of a human being? Because I was looking in the mirror like, that's not him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? This guy just crashed a real estate company and he's living at his parents' house with his wife and kid. I was like, I'm reading and then that's when I really started reading all these books and starting to like chisel away at like, okay, this is what I need to do. Like start small and then know where I want to get there.
Yeah. I also read The Easy Way, but to quit drinking. And I
Oh,
think that was
did it
like,
work?
oh yeah, it worked amazingly,
Amazing.
which was crazy because even in the beginning of the book, he's like, I don't know if he says it in the smoking one too, but he's like, you can drink throughout reading this book, drink as much as you want.
Yeah.
And then by the end, you won't want to. And I'm like, I don't know how you think books work.
Get out of here,
But,
Alan Carr. You
but
go
yeah.
fuck yourself.
Yeah. And then, yeah, by the
Watch
end.
this.
And then I'm drinking the book. I'm like, I'll fucking drink your book, bro. I'll drink your words, dude. But yeah, it did work. And that's so crazy that you say that, though, to like, that was kind of like the starting point, because that's a huge thing to quit drinking or to quit smoking, because it is such you don't realize, for me at least, I didn't realize it until reading that book, but I'm like, oh, this is the center of my life, even though I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I just, I drink when I'm out doing stuff, but whatever. But I'm like, no, I was like moving around drinking. And same with smoking, because I smoked for a while, and then to make that change, because for me too, that was like the same, or the first kind of self-help book that I've read. And so to have that huge thing be the first is pretty crazy. And I've never really thought about it until now, until you said that. But it's like, oh, that's like a huge thing. It's not like, oh, I want to learn Spanish, so I'm going to work for 10 minutes a day and then,
right.
blah, blah, blah. It's like,
no,
oh.
It's like, that's why it's such a crazy, like, if you want to talk about like those dominoes, like having that be, I've talked to a few other people too who have had that be like the initial first thing that they did was like, not just like what you said, like learn Spanish, do push-ups, something like that really is just adding something. It's like removing this entire puzzle piece from the identity and lifestyle that you have like almost subconsciously built for yourself. And then you move that puzzle piece and you're like, holy shit, I never looked at the picture like this before. And you're like, oh fuck, it knocks over huge dominoes after that, because everything else seems so approachable. You're like, fucking, what are push-ups? I just quit drinking, like that's nothing. I had to remove this fucking psychological ghost out of my head. Like,
yeah.
I had to get a fucking Alan Carr to be an exorcist to my fucking soul. And now I can, I can stop eating so much red meat.
And it's interesting too. You said earlier about like not the instant gratification, but like expecting to be great right away. And like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm the same way. I get super into like shit. I'll have an idea. I'm like, let me fucking bust this out. And then, especially I think with social media, that instant gratification of like, oh, it's working, and stand up too. Is I have this idea, let me try it. Depending on what city you're in, you can have an idea, write something, and then do it 2 or 3 times in one night at different places, and instantly know how it's going. And kind of having that want of, I have this idea, I want it to be great, so let me try it out, and then getting super into it, and then maybe it doesn't go the way you want to right away, and getting super bummed, and then kind of falling out of it, or just losing steam on it. And this is what I've learned from getting really into like writing, is like the first draft is always going to be shit. It's going to be terrible. No matter how badly you want it to be good, and it is a good idea, the first draft compared to your final draft is going to be shit. because you're just
I used to be a lot better about it, and I'm still pretty good at it, but I never show people my drafts until like I think it's done.
yeah.
You know, because then I can be like, first draft, everybody, and then and then get like honest feedback that I can then change and show people. Because you ever show someone a first draft or like a second draft, even of anything, a video that you're editing or like anything that you're going to take a few runs at, a joke, and you're, dude, how many jokes where you're like, this is fucking hot, and then you're going to fucking run it by someone just cold, be like, hey, let me run this by you, and they just look at you like, is it over? Oh, is that the joke? And you're like, you don't, you'll see. And then like, cause you know that like it's there. And then you're like, fuck. All right. And then you have to run it a few times. But to that person who just stared at you cold in the face, that joke might never be good to them because they just saw it. Right. They just saw it and they're like, like I've had, dude, so many jokes where people come up to me like a month, 6 months, years later, and they're like, wow, I can't believe people are laughing at that now. And they don't say it's funny now. They say, I can't believe you hacked the audience. Like, I can't believe
you're tricking these
people into thinking that was a laughable
You're making them laugh
comment.
at something that's not funny. It's not funny what you're doing to these people.
Right. They're mad at me. That's how it feels. And so now I try to like finish something and like really have it before I go. I even like ask somebody. I have to be like pretty tight with people to be like writing with them or being like, what is this? Is this anything? Because I'm so insecure because when I think something's good, I kind of like don't let people tell me it's not.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a good habit or not, but you're right. So like with quitting drinking or quitting smoking, you know right away, and this book does a really good job of explaining this, is like it's not going to be like, you know, awesome. Like you're not going to feel like your want to drink or whatever. It's not going to go away overnight. But what is going to happen immediately is you're going to feel less inclined to do it. And the next day, you're going to feel even less inclined and less inclined. And that feeling of being like, wow, I'm done. And every day is getting better. And just like that, knowing that like, man, tomorrow it'll be even better than this. And the next day I'll be even better than this. Just that faith. I've never experienced anything like that. Like then, especially with quitting smoking, drinking was nothing compared to smoking. Where I was just like, within like a month or two, I was like, oh, you know, like especially about a year after, I was just like, I don't even ever think about it. Like nothing.
Yeah.
Like it never even enters my brain. Still, cigarettes. Sometimes I'm like, man, fuck, I'm just gonna grab a pack and I'm gonna fucking go to that gas station and smoke them all. Like, you know,
I'm gonna go to that skate park and just fucking blow them, dude.
And I'm gonna hand them out to every fucking teenager who wants one. Be the coolest guy there. I do think like that sometimes, but it's just like really, really, really passive. But then same thing where it's like, well, I'm really bad at social media right now. Like I'll make a post and be like, oh God, like I can feel that drain that I used to feel and go, yeah, but the next time it's not as bad. And the next time it's not as bad. And the next time, and then pretty soon it's just like, I don't even think about it. I don't even check to see how many likes stuff got a lot of the times now, because I'm just like, it's just part of the routine. I'll reply to the comments. I'm like, oh yeah, did it get a lot of views or did it get a lot of likes? I'm like, oh, cool or not. Like, and I'm like, okay, just keep it moving. Like I have a big overarching goal that I'm going to, and none of it really involves like this post blowing up this second.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think the key word you said in there too was right now. That's fucking two words. But yeah, it's the thing of being like, this is it's gonna suck right now. Like I don't really want to do it, but it's right now. And you have to have that patience to know, okay, yeah, it sucks now, but if I just keep at it, if I get it more, just if it becomes a habit, it's more integrated into my daily life and whatever, but through baby steps, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself, then eventually it is going to get easier. And that's what's really funny about those books. I don't know if he does it in the smoking book, but in the drinking book, he like rails against AA to the point where it's almost like, dude, all right, let's chill the fuck out a little bit. But it is kind of like you said,
I
where
get it though.
yeah,
I
because
get it though.
their thing is like, you're broken. You're always gonna want to drink. You're always gonna have to fight. You're gonna have to fight that
Yep.
demon and blah blah blah. And in reality, it's really the mindset you go in with, because with him, he's like, yeah, you want to, but then you realize why you want to. It's not, oh, I want this drink. It's, oh, I want to sit down and I just want to relax and do whatever, which you can do without a drink, without a cigarette. And as time goes on, that gets eliminated from your systems, from your daily system of how you're doing things. And it does. You're like, oh, I don't even really think about it anymore. And especially with drinking, that first hangover is a motherfucker. So that's kind of more of a deterrent. With smoking, I've taken breaks and I've come back, and that first one is rough. It's not like, oh, this is enjoyable. You're like, holy shit, I do this every day. But it's kind of in the same, like one of those graphs that goes, like up and down. Whereas things get easier as you do them, bad things get easier on your body too, because you get used to it.
Yeah.
And, it's easier to just slide back down. But if you just have that patience to be like, all right, these positive changes, it's going to be some work. It's going to be awkward at first. But if I just keep going and you learn yourself a little bit. So you're like, all right, I know if I try to do all of this, it's going to be intimidating for me. I'm like, if I just make a little to-do list every day, and then eventually you learn what's too long for a to-do list. If you're trying to pack too many things in, maybe spread it out over a couple of days, then you're like, all right, it's easier. But you gotta be patient and go with yourself, like you said.
Yeah, it is. With productivity is kind of my big one right now that I'm just slowly. I've been bullet journaling. This was like a thing I started doing a couple years ago. Thanks. Sorry, my hat fell off and now I'm insecure. This is another habit I'm trying to get into. Stop being so insecure about your stupid fucking bald head. I've been bullet journaling. So this is like a big thing of like tracking your productivity and keeping a to-do list and like knowing all your goals and like checking in with them every day, so that like, and especially as a comedian, you're writing down your thoughts and ideas, and you have, whatever scripts I'm working on and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I keep them all in these bullet journals, but still I'm fucking so bad at actually like doing all of the things.
Yeah.
Like I always write down way more than is possible. It's like a terrible thing that I'm still really bad at. Like, oh, these are all the things I want to do. I'll do them all tomorrow. Like, and just put like everything I've been waiting to do for 6 months in one day and be like,
Yeah.
see you tomorrow stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, all I did was the light bulbs.
Yeah. And then you feel bad and you're like, fuck, man. Well, I started doing it because I didn't do it, and then I would have like a free day and I mentally have all this shit. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, blah blah blah. And then the day comes, I forget most of it, or I kind of think that I have all this time. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I got time. I'll do it later. I'll do this. I'll do that. And then the end of the day comes, and then suddenly I remember all of it, and I'm like, fuck, I haven't done anything. Now I just feel like a piece of shit. And that would happen especially during quarantine. That would happen every fucking day. And then eventually my therapist was like, why don't you just like make a to-do list or whatever? And I'm like, oh yeah, I could try it. I could give that a shot. I guess, you're a professional, but I could see. And, doing that, and then especially giving myself like a schedule. I mean, yeah, you have a family and stuff, so like you actually do have a schedule, whereas I'm just like, I could wake up whenever and do whenever. But I'm like, all right, if I give myself from like 1 to 6 to work on all this shit, then mentally I'm like, all right, I have 5 hours to do this. And like forcing yourself to stop at that time and be like, I'm not going to work on anything after that, gives you what's that saying? Whatever task you have will take as long as the time you allow yourself. So if you have 2 weeks to work on something, guess what? It's going to take 2 weeks. But if you give yourself 1 week,
I give myself deadlines, and now I almost have to make them public. Otherwise I won't meet them.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
It's 100%. Like I read this productivity book that was really recommending like write what you want to do on your to-do list and write next to it how much time you're going to give yourself. Not a schedule like do it at this time, but like actually put like 14 minutes and always make it like not round. so that you're like, no, like actually though, like 51 minutes, like don't, like keep your eye on the clock and that's it. You have to be done in 51 minutes from the time you start. And like that really helps like get shit done, because then it becomes kind of like a game and you're like, all right, I'm fucking gonna send all these emails in 6 minutes. And you're like, and you actually like do them all and hit send, instead of being like, ooh, I wonder if like I'm gonna Google these, word definitions for a second. You're just like, no, fuck it, definitely spelled like this now. Boom, send.
That's interesting. I've heard of that for like tricks. I think it's in Atomic Habits too, to like get yourself started to do shit where you're like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to do this every day, but I'm only going to do it I'm going to do it for 10 minutes. And if I'm not feeling it at 10 minutes, I'll stop. But 99% of the time you just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. This Miracle Mornings book I read, which I don't like the, it's the guy's a little churchy for me, but it was nice that he put these like 7 things, and in all these habit books they talk about how a lot of people wake up and they have these like crazy morning routines where they wake up at 4 a.m, all these like super ambitious, successful people. And this guy kind of put them all down into like kind of a workable run through that was like, he called them your morning savers. I think his name is Hal Elrod, which not to be confused with L. Ron Hubbard. I know this. But
he also has a lot of really
talk
good
about
points.
Great self-help. Have you read Dianetics? So anyways, this all comes around to a Scientology pitch. So anyway, and that's how I found the church. Speaking of Tom Cruise and Scientology.
And that's how I found out people don't return Tom Cruise's phone call. That's how I found out.
He's trying to get hold of me right now. I mean, the guy is relentless. The Miracle Morning is like the morning savers, which is SAVERS, S for silence, which is meditation, and then A for affirmations, which is positive affirmations, V for visualizations, like scheduling your calendar, E for exercise, R for reading, and then S for scribing, which is like writing. So it's like every day I started doing those things, and it was like exactly what you're not supposed to do, which is like, oh, I'm gonna add 7 things that I don't do every day to, but I made it through like a month of like actually pretty good about doing them all. And for like the last 2 years since, it's been me kind of like knowing that like, man, if I can get back to that point where I was for that month permanently, I'll be fucking like unstoppable, because it was such an amazing feeling to like, and it takes like an hour and a half, 2 hours of your morning, you know what I mean? But you're like, at the end of it, like people are just waking up and you're like, dude, I did all of my shit today pretty much. Like, cause at the end of the routine, you pretty much go through, your normal day, but you're like so on it, and you know exactly what you want to do. You wrote it all down. You did your exercise, like you're all like tuned in, and then like the way you're able to cruise through the rest of your to-do list and shit like that is just like so fast.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your day you can pretty much do whatever the fuck you want, which is like, for me was like writing jokes and trying to get booked and shit like that. So I'm still kind of trying to get to that that point where I like reading every day. Like, can you imagine?
Dude,
every day in the first part of your day, read like a full chapter of a book or whatever. Like, and since then I read so much more now, not like every day, but like pretty close, and not like every time in the morning, but in audiobooks and all that kind of stuff. It's been like huge monumental change in my life, was like reading again,
Yeah, I definitely agree, because I started meditating for a little bit during quarantine at the beginning, and found that it did help, but then fell out of it. And I'm kind of in the same way where I'm like, if I could get back to it, if I could get back to doing that every day,
you got to know it's just permanent.
Yeah.
I'm going to meditate every day for the rest of my life. So now just do it for 1 minute, 1 minute a day, or 10 seconds if you can't make even that minute work. It's the same thing. Just be like, but soon, one day, it'll be 20 minutes a day or 40 minutes a day or whatever, how people, whatever your goal is. But meditation's huge.
I think it is kind of a perspective thing, where it's, you can look at it negatively and be like, oh man, I used to do this and it really helped, but now I don't do it anymore. Like, what's wrong with me? I'm just so lazy, blah, blah, blah. But I think the way you should look at it is, oh, I've done this and I know that it really helps. So like, all right, yeah. I want to get back to it. But the cool thing is I know I've found something that helps me. So if I just have the patience to be like, all right, let me try to work it back in. It's going to be awkward. It's not going to feel good at first. Then it'll be good.
And the next day it'll get better. And the next day it'll get better. And the next day it'll get better. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. What do you, anything you want to plug? What should the people, what should they do?
Yeah, listen to my podcast. I really love my podcast. It's great. I don't have guests. It's just me. It's very funny. It's great to just play in the background. Or if you really listen to it intently, it's also fantastic. There's a lot of subliminal messaging. It's great. Just put it on, listen to it. If you get it, you get it. I think it's some of my best work.
Wow.
And my web series, Comedians at Skate Parks, on YouTube. It launches on September 23rd with my first guest, Mark Normand. And the YouTube channel will have new episodes looking like every 2 weeks.
What's your podcast
There you
called?
go. Addictive Tickle.
There we go. Boom. Check it. And you have an album with the same name, correct?
And I have a comedy album also called Addictive Tickle.
Wow. Check that out as well. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, being first guest.
My pleasure. You're good at this. I really hope you keep doing this. This is awesome. And as much as I liked the older kids podcast, I think this is a more natural fit.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. You're right, man. You're very right. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening. Tune in next time when we are back with another great guest and another great topic. I stole that from the fucking older kids, baby. That's recycled. That's recycled.
For the long time listeners.
What if I was like, with another great guest and another great movie? No, fuck, stupid. All right, what an outro.
One thing I told myself I wouldn't say.
Bad habit. That's actually part of the habits thing, is you have to yell bad habit when you do a bad habit.
It's like training yourself like a dog.
Exactly. You have a little buzzer, a little
give yourself treats and have a little shot collar. Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.